Welcome to the Lady Landlords podcast, where we empower women to gain financial independence through real estate investing. I'm your host, Becky Nova, founder of Lady Landlords. If you're ready to buy, manage, and grow your real estate portfolio, then let's get started.
This is the end of an era. Yep, that's right. Lady Landlords Headquarters is being closed. Welcome to today's episode of the Lady Landlords podcast. I am your host, Becky Nova. And no, do not worry. We are not going to be closing Lady Landlords. But if you're watching me over on our YouTube channel, you can see I am in an office that no longer has anything around me. If you are getting caught up with some of our episodes, we are actually moving. My husband Emilio and I are going to be leaving Westchester County, New York. We are moving upstate. We bought our own new home and are going to be moving there in a few weeks once, fingers crossed, renovations ever finished. So I'll kind of give you a little bit of a life update here. And today's episode, I just want to share a little bit of gratitude and a little bit of the memories that I've had working out of this space for the past 4 years as Lady Landlords really just kind of started and has been able to make an impact and empower so many tens of thousands of women and what that means and what that's looked like over the years. So as many of you know, I started Lady Landlords back in 2020. I was already a landlord by that point in time. My husband Emilio and I had bought our first rental property back in 2018 in Yonkers, New York. We moved up from the Bronx, and that was our first duplex. We had no intention of ever becoming landlords, of owning other rental properties, of ever really kind of growing what that looked like. We literally just bought that very first property, and we bought as a duplex to be able to offset the cost of our own living expenses. Living anywhere these days is expensive, but living in New York was very high priced for us. And moving into Westchester County from where we lived in the Bronx was also going to have an extra cost to it. So it was something we really wanted to make sure that we can buy a multifamily, live in one side, rent out the other side. House hacking, if you happen to be familiar with that concept, where you're able to have those tenants help offset your own living costs. We were extremely lucky when we bought in 2018. The property that we bought, we only needed the smaller of the two units. So the duplex we brought had a 1-bedroom on the first floor, which was awesome because I was able to get some outside space, which as a city kid and as a New Yorker, outside space is really, really highly prized. But the upstairs unit was its own duplex. It was a 2-floor house, 2-floor apartment, and it has 3 bedrooms, 1.5 baths. Absolutely not what just my husband and I needed. So we were able to rent out the larger unit, which helped really cover all of our costs for that space. So it was really great to just completely eliminate a cost of living and even make a little bit of money during that time kind of coming in. And we've been there for quite a few years now. Once we bought that property, that was my introduction to real estate investing, and I absolutely fell in love with it. It was exactly 1 year to the date, meaning the first property we bought was May 22nd, 2018. We closed on a 4-family and a parking lot on May 22nd, 2019. Okay. It was actually a property that was an off-market deal. It was one of our neighbors that was looking to sell. So it was really great to have 2 properties right across the street. We also didn't have parking with the first duplex that we bought. So it was really great to be able to now have parking not only for us, but also to be able to offer that as an additional cost to our tenants. So that was just a whole nother income stream that came in. With that, I absolutely fell in love with real estate investing. That was really where my husband and I started to see the power of what real estate investing can do. And that was where we decided to start growing our portfolio then. That was 2019. We bought that property. It was actually the same week we got married, same week we left for our honeymoon. It was a very, very busy time, May of 2019. Everything else kind of got settled the rest of that year. And I remember working with our accountant in January of 2020 to do our taxes. Now, remember this timeline here, January 2020. January 2020, I remember talking with our accountant, and she was asking if we planned on buying another rental property that year. My husband was like, nope, no, we are not. We are not buying another property. That is not something we're going to be doing this year. And I just kind of went along and agreed with it. We had bought multiple properties. We were already managing tenants. We had been doing some rehab already at this point in time. So even though I did want to buy another property, I kind of understood why maybe waiting a little bit longer was something that would make sense. And I totally understood why also my husband wanted that break as well. But as you may remember, a few months later, March 2020 happened. All of a sudden now, especially in New York, we started to get shut down due to the COVID pandemic. At that point in time, I already had, what would that be, 6 units that I was renting. We also closed and bought our first property down in the Dominican Republic, my husband's home country at that point in time. So when that space came out, it was, to me, I really saw it as an opportunity. There were a couple of things that happened in March 2020. The first thing that happened is I was like, okay, people are moving, economy is shifting. There's some really good opportunities to be able to pick up another rental property. So now I had to go back to my husband, back to the accountant, and said, hey, people are moving, people are able to work from home, things are shifting, prices have completely dropped. I think now is a fantastic time to be able to buy. My husband was one person, like so many others, that did lose their job during that time period. And I remember him just kind of looking at me being like, we just lost an income stream. What do you mean we should buy another rental property? And I remember saying that's exactly why we should buy a rental property, because we need to start relying on ourselves and not expect corporate America, government to be taking care of us and helping us through this. But we really need to see what we'll be able to do to provide and to create that income for ourselves. So I remember once again, he was just like, I don't really get this. I think this is the opposite time to be able to buy a property. But as he so often does, is support me and understand some of the decisions that I would like to make. And he went along with it. But we also had a whole bunch of rental properties and now concerns about which tenants we're going to be able to continue to pay, what our financial situation was going to look like with any repairs that we had to do, with now my husband also being out of work. So it was actually at that point in time when I felt like, well, I can't really go to network meetings anymore. And that was something that I love being able to do and go meet other real estate investors. So I simply started a Facebook group called Lady Landlords. And to be honest, I did not think anybody else was going to join this group. I really was just like, everybody that I kind of know already thought that what I was doing or my vision for buying more properties, even during the pandemic, everybody just thought, it was too out of the box thinking. It was too different. It wasn't mainstream enough. And I wasn't coloring within the lines. And I really just felt very alone at that point, and I felt that there were probably nobody else that was kind of thinking like me. But you proved me wrong. I had women after women after women asking to join and coming into that group, and it was such an amazing time in 2020 to see just the support that everyone was able to give about what was happening with their tenants, who wasn't able to pay, who was behind, who had what type of eviction moratorium. As eviction moratoriums then grew, what the rule was, sharing information, sharing what was going on with tenants, regulations, how they were getting through this situation. And I have to say, in 2020, it was absolutely beautiful, not only to see so many other women that were thinking outside like the box, like I was, or that wanted to control their financial future or have that financial stability, that they realized through that pandemic they could not count on their day job to be able to support them when times were tough or in case of emergencies in those situations, that said, I need another way to be able to support my family, to support myself. And it's not just going to be that 9 to 5 job. I need something else to be able to support me. And it was in 2020, like I said, we had hundreds of women. I still remember waking up in the morning being like, oh my God, I have all these requests of women that want to join Lady Landlords that came in over the night. And it was actually that first summer we started to do our first workshop. We started to do some virtual networking since we couldn't necessarily get together in person at that period in time. But we started to do beginners workshops, really helping women that were looking to get their very first property during that period of time and really capitalize on the low interest rates. And right at the beginning of the pandemic, those lower prices for properties. A lot of women were able to pick up properties during that time when nobody else wanted to buy. And that was a huge opportunity for so many of our lady landlords to really get started. We also did other workshops for those that were looking to scale. All of a sudden, lending changed. That was something that now you went from maybe being able to put down 10, 15% down to having to put down 20, 25%. Oh, and rental income from the other units didn't actually count towards any income. This changed what lending looked like overnight for a lot of lady landlords. And that was something that it was so nice to communicate and have those conversations about what we can do, how we can still work together, and really support each other through that. And it kept me going during 2020. It became my absolute passion projects. And I know so many other women that are still in the group today, 5 years later, that was where we met. And it was absolutely beautiful. 2021 brought finally some in-person meetups, which was fantastic. It was so great then with women that I had been able to know for a year and been able to connect with and have phone calls with and be on workshops and Zooms and be able to hug each other and be able to meet. That was really, really great. We were able to do meetups here in New York. We did meetups in Florida. We did meetups. I flew out to California because we have so many members and Lady Landlords out in California. And we're doing some meetups in the Bay Area, which was fantastic. And it was just so nice to be able to move forward as this group continued to join. Our mentorship program also continued to grow at that point in time. And I really got to start working in depth with women on what they wanted to see out of their portfolio and how they were able to navigate that market. There was a huge opportunity with those lower interest rates that all of us remember and wish that we still had the access to, but that came with competition, that came with sale price. That was really high. And those are things that we had to talk about and how to learn how to negotiate and how to learn how to make those deals still work because the deals have always been out there, but it's how do we make it work and how do we move forward with them? And it was really beautiful to see that growth during that period of time. During that time, I was actually still working in cancer research. That was my career for about 15 years. I worked for pharmaceutical companies, I worked for hospitals. And at that time, I was still in that space. But it was then in 2021 when I'd been now working from home for like a year. My husband, who at that time didn't start to go back to work, but he was out of work once again for probably about a year during the pandemic. And then he was able to go back to work and he was working at a bar at that point in time. So we were both home during the day, all day. I remember I mentioned we were in a 1 bedroom. And I said, you know what? I kind of miss getting up and going out. I used to take the train down into Manhattan for 25 minutes. I got out in Grand Central, which was just a highlight of my morning. And I got to be able to walk to an office in Manhattan. That's what I did for many years when I was still working in pharmaceuticals and in the cancer research industry. And I missed that schedule. I missed having my gym time, my lunchtime, and a little packed in my Tupperware. To be honest, that really worked for me. I'm a very routine person, as most humans are, and we like some of that structure. So I thought at that point in time, it would be really great to have my own office space. I can get out of the house. I had reason to put on pants that buttoned, and I could be around some people again. And I think that was something that so many of us really missed during the pandemic. So that's what I did. I started searching for office space and we went back and forth about either buying something or renting, right? So now turning house hacking kind of into office hacking. But my husband and I said, let's just kind of start, in one place. Let's see if I even like it. Let's see what that even looks like. Also, we do live out of the United States for half the year. So maybe buying something, it kind of made sense not to necessarily do as this test. So I looked at a couple different office spaces, flex space, kind of if you think of like a WeWork type space where you can just rent co-working space and an office there. But fortunately, through your network, opportunities always arise. A friend of a friend of a friend mentioned a office space right down the street from where I was living in Westchester County, New York. And it's actually in a property manager's office. So talk about another fantastic ability to network, where then I was able to rent this office space that I'm currently sitting in. First thing I did, I bought purple paint to make sure that we were matching Lady Landlords. So it just was able to create just a happy space for me to be able to come to. And I've been here, I think, since the end of maybe middle of 2021. So about 4 years I've been in this space. And I have to say, I've absolutely loved it. What's great is the office space that I'm in, it gives me the availability where I could still kind of use a kitchen and talk to some other people in the office and have some little water cooler chat if I want to. But also it allows me to kind of separate out my time and really have some private workspace. The reason I did this and the reason I want to share this with you is because I still do feel that when we're starting out as real estate investors, we have a lot of competing priorities. We maybe have a 9 to 5 job or work in some type of capacity, even if it is part-time. Maybe we have a family, a partner, we have things going on at home. And sometimes it's hard to be able to carve out time that's going to be just for us or for the things that we want to work on specifically. What having this office space gave me was really that structure, that dedicated time where I actually feel like I came here and was actually more productive than I would be when I was working anywhere else. I had my nice setup. It was a door I was able to lock, but when I walked in, I had everything that I needed really at my fingertips to come in, be productive, get done the things that I needed to do, whether it was phone calls because I had to talk to a plumber, an electrician, to be able to answer some of the questions that I get from the ladies in our mentorship program, to respond back and just make sure that everybody in our larger Lady Landlords community is taken care of. I was able to do all those things and I was able to be efficient here. The other thing that I absolutely loved about having dedicated office space was when I walked out of here, that was it. My time was over, right? I feel like when I was working from home, you would like almost hear the computer like dinging. And I remember this from corporate America. So sorry if I'm giving anybody else flashbacks, but I felt like I was able to hear when all of a sudden like Microsoft Teams would like ping me. And now it's after hours. I was off the clock, but hey, someone's pinging me. Let me see what they need. I was a manager when I left the pharmaceutical industry. I had a large staff that I was overseeing. I wanted to be able to be there and to be able to support them. But now all of a sudden I was working earlier than I was supposed to, later than I was supposed to. But having my own dedicated space allowed me to put regularity into my schedule. And when I left. Things were done. And for me, it was always been really nice to have that separation of my time, of that where is my life versus where are the things that I need to get done for my business. That really helped not only when I was still working in corporate America, but even just when I think about my management and scaling of my own rental portfolio, I had my dedicated time. And I think that's something that a lot of us tend to miss when real estate investing is that side hustle, is that additional thing that we do on the side, is it's trying to figure out where we can necessarily like kind of fit it in. But then this pops up, this pops up, this pops up. And then all of a sudden we realize, hey, I wasn't able to call those lenders that I wanted to. I wasn't able to go to those showings that I wanted to. I wasn't able to talk to some contractors about that rehab. And I think that's where we go month after month after month, year after year after year, saying, I want to buy the next property, but I never necessarily do. And I really attribute a lot of that success and a lot of that growth to being able to be in the space. Now, most of you guys have only known me in this space from just me, the woman that talks to the camera from a purple wall. And I just want to say what I think is really cool. And one of the things that I'm probably going to miss the most about this space is the amount of time, even if it was on Zoom, even if it wasn't necessarily in person, of really getting to know so many of our members by hopping on Zoom here and having this purple room and getting to know so many of you ladies. I have gotten to see women that have been able to quit their jobs, women that have been able to create their own maternity leave, women that have been able to move to part-time, women that have been able to retire their husbands. It has been amazing just to hear what other women are doing, how they're growing, how they moved into maybe commercial space. They're doing their own development. It has just been absolutely fantastic. And I have to say, I feel like that's the saddest part of me leaving this chapter and moving to the next one is just all the memories and all the conversations that I have had with hundreds, probably thousands of lady landlords while sitting in this purple room. And it's something that I've absolutely loved. This, I have to be honest, is probably one of the hardest parts about me moving to a new area is having to let go of this space. But do not worry. We will have a new Lady Landlords headquarters in a few weeks. If you've been following me in the Facebook group itself for Lady Landlords, or if you follow me over on Instagram at the Becky Nova, I've been sharing updates for the rehab that we've been doing on our own personal property. It's like 4 to 6 weeks of rehabs. We were hoping more that it was going to be closer to 4. It looks like it's going to be closer to that 6. So we are almost there. We are almost at that home stretch, and I have been renovating one of the rooms. So I will be back to working from home, but now I will have a dedicated office space. Lady Landlords Headquarters will not be in the middle of my living room, also known as my dining room, also known as my husband's game room, also known as my husband's place to relax himself and my place to relax. So it'll be very nice to have that dedicated space now that we will have a larger home. If you have been following me for a while, you also know that I am due with our first baby this fall. That is clearly one of the main reasons that we are going to be making this move and having bigger space. I have to be honest, my entire goal is really just to go live really close to my mom so I can get a ton of help and support and have somebody there that I can really just trust to help me walk through kind of this next chapter of my life. But Lady Landlords Headquarters will come back. We will have a different color set up, a different Lady Landlords purple in the new office. I'm really excited to give you guys a tour, but just wanted to say thank you so much for all the memories in this office. I'm going to miss it, and I cannot wait for the next chapter for what Lady Landlords looks like coming in a few weeks. Thank you so much for listening. Please do make sure to subscribe to the Lady Landlords podcast as we release new episodes every single Tuesday. We will be back next week with some more member stories. Some of the women that I've gotten to meet while in this purple room here are going to be sharing some of the stories of properties that they have recently closed on. And we have a few really amazing experts that's going to be coming in, talking about some very niche areas within real estate investing that I know our members are going to love. All right. So please do make sure to subscribe, hit that button. We release new episodes every single Tuesday, and I will see you next Tuesday. Not sure where from quite yet, but soon enough, we will see you at the next Lady Landlords Headquarters. Thanks so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you for listening to the Lady Landlords podcast. If you're feeling stuck in your real estate investing journey, visit lady-landlords.com to book a 15-minute orientation call with me and see if you're ready to join our mentorship program. Or you can subscribe to our newsletter and join our Facebook group for exclusive real estate investing tips and offers. Invest with confidence. Become a Lady Landlord today.